Hey guys, what if I told you that for centuries, one of the most useful and valuable substances in daily life was urine? Now, before you wrinkle your nose and click away, just think about it. To our ancestors, this wasn't just waste. It was a resource, an incredibly useful, chemically potent, and universally available resource. They used it to wash their clothes, tan leather for a soldier's sandals, brighten the dyes in a noble woman's gown, and even to treat illnesses. This stuff was so economically vital that in some places it was collected from the streets, bought and sold, and eventually taxed by a Roman emperor, giving us one of the most famous financial sayings in history. This wasn't just some strange quirk, it was a cornerstone of industry. So how did something we now flush without a second thought become, for our ancestors, liquid gold? Let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. You're walking down a street in ancient Rome. It's bustling, noisy, vibrant. You see senators in their gleaming white togas and merchants hawking their wares. Now, look a little closer at the street corners. You'll notice large clay pots, almost like public bins. But these aren't for trash. These are collection jars, placed there for any man to relieve himself. And this isn't just about public convenience. It's about harvesting a raw material. Every drop was destined for an industry as essential to Roman life as bakeries or bathhouses. This is the story of how our ancestors unlocked the hidden power of pee, turning it into a fundamental part of their world in ways that are both ingenious and, to our modern minds, utterly bizarre. We'll start with its most widespread and economically important role as the ultimate cleaning agent. Today, we take modern laundry for granted. A scoop of powder, a press of a button, and stains vanish. But for most of human history, getting clothes truly clean was a monumental challenge. So how did the ancient Romans, whose social status was often tied to the pristine whiteness of their togas, get that brilliant white? The answer was in those collection pots. The epicenter of Roman cleaning was a workshop called a Phylonica, basically the industrial laundries of the ancient world. In Pompeii alone, archaeologists have found 18 of them, which tells you just how vital this business was. And the star ingredient in their entire operation was stale human urine. It seems counterintuitive to say the least, but the Romans had figured out a key piece of chemistry. The secret isn't fresh urine, it's old urine. You see, the key nitrogenous component in urine is a compound called urea. When you let it sit for a while, bacteria break it down and transform it into something else, ammonia. And ammonia is a powerful natural degreaser and stain remover. In fact, it's still a key ingredient in many heavy-duty household cleaners today. The Romans didn't have the language of modern chemistry, but they knew one thing for sure. The older and more pungent the urine, the better it cleaned. It was a potent, free, an endlessly renewable source of chemical cleaning power. So what was it actually like to work in one of these laundries? Well, it begins with collection. The workers, called Phylones, would gather urine from the public pots and latrines and store it in large vats to age. When a customer dropped off a soiled toga, the garment was thrown into a small stone trampling stall. This tub was filled with a mixture of water and aged urine. Then the human washing machine was switched on. The Phulo, or more often his slaves, would get into the vat and stomp on the clothes for hours, pounding the fabric against the stone floor. It was grueling, smelly, and physically demanding labor. After the stomping, the urine-soaked garments were wrung out and taken to a series of large rinsing basins, often with fresh water flowing in from the city's aqueducts. For white garments, there was one final crucial step: bleaching. The damp clothes were draped over a large wicker frame placed over burning sulfur. The rising sulfur dioxide gas would whiten the fabric to a dazzling brightness. This entire industry, a pillar of the Roman economy, was built on the chemical properties of pea. But its usefulness didn't stop there. In textile dyeing, natural dyes don't always stick to fabric well. To make the color permanent, you need a substance called a mordant to bind the dye to the fibers. As it turns out, the ammonia in aged urine was a useful assistant in this process, often used alongside primary mordants like alum to ensure the final color would be vibrant and long-lasting. In 16th century England, this was so important for the wool industry that significant quantities of urine were brought to the dyeing centers in Yorkshire, where it was considered a vital resource. Beyond textiles, it also played a role in leather tanning. Soaking animal hides in aged urine was an effective way to remove hair and leftover bits of flesh, softening the hide for the rest of the tanning process. It was a foul-smelling but necessary step in producing the leather needed for everything from sandals to military armor. So, from a senator's toga to a soldier's shield, urine was the invisible, and admittedly pungent, chemical that underpinned much of the ancient industrial world. But its applications weren't just industrial. It might be even more surprising to learn that people also turned to it as a form of medicine.
If using urine to wash clothes seems strange, using it to heal the body might seem downright dangerous. Yet for thousands of years, that's exactly what people did. The practice, known today as urotherapy, was a widespread medical tradition documented across the ancient world. One of its most significant uses was as a diagnostic tool. Long before modern lab tests, physicians had to rely on their senses, and they believed urine offered a direct window into a person's internal state. This practice, known as uroscopy, became a major diagnostic method in medieval Europe. A physician would have a patient provide a sample in a special flask and then meticulously examine it for color, clarity, and sediment, often using elaborate urine wheels. These charts depicted around 20 different colors, each corresponding to a potential illness. While university-trained physicians practiced this, the more colorful term piss prophet was often used for itinerant healers who relied on this method. And the examination didn't stop at sight. They would also smell it, and in some cases, even taste it. While this sounds repulsive, it was based on observation. In the 17th century, the physician Thomas Willis noted that the urine of some patients had a wonderfully sweet taste. He had, without knowing the underlying cause, identified a key symptom of what we now call diabetes mellitus. Mellitus being the Latin for honey. Then there's the case of King George III. His physicians recorded his purple-tinged urine, and a prominent modern theory suggests this was a sign of porphyria, a genetic disorder that could have contributed to his famous bouts of madness. Beyond diagnosis, urine was prescribed as a treatment. One of its most common applications was as an antiseptic. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder recommended it for sores and burns. This may seem bizarre, but in an era before germ theory, when water was often dangerously contaminated, freshly voided urine was seen as sterile and was certainly a cleaner option for washing a wound than murky water from a river. It was also used in cosmetics, and there's a kernel of scientific truth here. Urea is an excellent emollient, meaning it softens and moisturizes the skin. It's so effective, in fact, that synthetic urea is a common ingredient in many modern moisturizing creams today. Perhaps the most infamous use was for dental hygiene. The Roman poet Catullus famously mocked a rival named Ignatius, who was known for his dazzlingly white teeth. Catullus joked that Ignatius's smile was so bright only because he was from Spain, where it was supposedly common to brush one's teeth with the previous night's pee. The jab implies that for an educated Roman, this was considered a foreign and somewhat barbaric habit. even if the ammonia did work as a bleaching agent. And yes, some ancient and early modern medical traditions even advocated for drinking urine for one's health. While most claimed benefits were based on folklore, observers did note one effect. The urea acts as a diuretic. This led to its inclusion in some 19th century medical preparations to treat edema, the swelling caused by excess fluid in the body. So, from a diagnostic tool to a battlefield antiseptic, urine occupied a prominent, if peculiar, place in the historical medical cabinet. This recognized value, especially in industry, meant it was a valuable commodity. And wherever there is a valuable commodity, someone, somewhere, will eventually decide to tax it. In the year 69 AD, the Roman Empire was in chaos. After Emperor Nero's death, a bloody civil war erupted. By the time the dust settled, a new man was on the throne, a pragmatic, no-nonsense general named Vespasian. He inherited an empire on the brink of bankruptcy, its treasury drained. His main task was to refill the state's empty coffers. Vespasian was creative in his search for revenue, and his eyes fell on the bustling, profitable, and untaxed trade in urine. He saw the fullers and tanners buying this essential material, and he saw an opportunity. Around 70 AD, he introduced the vectigol urine, the urine tax. To be clear, citizens weren't charged for using a latrine. The tax was levied on the buyers of urine. The collectors who emptied the public urns would sell their product to workshops, and under Vespasian's law, these buyers had to pay a tax to the state. It was an industrial tax, and it worked. It brought a steady stream of revenue into the treasury, helping to fund projects like the construction of the Colosseum. But not everyone was a fan. Many Romans found it disgusting and undignified, including Vespasian's own son, Titus. Titus was appalled. He confronted his father, complaining that it was a sordid and shameful way to raise money. The story of Vespasian's response, recorded by Roman historians, has become legendary. Vespasian listened to his son's complaints. Then he reached into the day's proceeds from the tax, picked up a gold coin, and held it directly under Titus's nose. "Does it smell?" the emperor asked. Titus, smelling nothing but metal, replied, "No." Vespasian then delivered his legendary retort, "Pecunia non olet." Money does not stink. With that one simple phrase, Vespasian articulated his philosophy of ultimate pragmatism. The value of a coin is not tainted by its origin. Money is money. The phrase has echoed through the centuries, a cynical and witty commentary on the nature of value, all thanks to a tax on stale pee.
So from the steam-filled laundries of Pompeii to the medieval physician's consulting room, and all the way to the imperial treasury of Rome, urine was a substance of surprising and, frankly, bizarre importance. It was the soap before soap, a diagnostic fluid, a folk medicine, and a commodity so valuable it was taxed to help build the Colosseum. The story of urine in history is a perfect example of human resourcefulness. It shows how our ancestors used careful observation and generations of trial and error to unlock the hidden properties of the world around them and within them. They found utility in the mundane and value in the discarded. It goes to show that in history, value can be found in the most unexpected of places. What was the most surprising use of urine to you? The industrial-scale laundries? The bizarre medical treatments? Or the fact that it was taxed by a Roman emperor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into weird history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the strange and fascinating corners of the past.